Welcome to PENSARE Basketball Live. The Toronto Raptors made a very big decision 3 years ago when they fired Nick Nurse and brought in Darko Rajakovic. And a lot of people had this question: who is this guy, and why are the Toronto Raptors hiring a guy who's never really coached at a high level in the NBA as a head coach, apart from a few games as an interim coach with the Memphis Grizzlies? And this is a man who had a crazy development track record. And I think that track record is on display in these playoffs. I was browsing past the post on socials and I saw this post that was talking about all these guys who are playoff risers. And you can obviously include Pascal Siakam last year. You can include John Morant 2, 3 years ago. But obviously, this year we're talking about OG Anunoby. We're talking about RJ Barrett. We're talking about Scotty Barnes. We are definitely talking about Jacoby Walter. Colin Murray Boyles? I think that Darko Rajakovic has coached half of the players that you would think of right now over the last couple of years as playoff risers. And it got me thinking a lot about, Zigsaw Puzzle saying Celtics down. Yes, that was surprising, unbelievably surprising. And honestly, it's kind of weird because the Celtics losing in that game the way they did with Tyrese Maxey closing it out, Joel Embiid, all the antics. Shout outs to Joel Embiid. He showed a lot of grit and a lot of toughness for real. I am not a big Joel Embiid fan. Everyone who has listened to me knows I am not a big Joel Embiid fan. But Joel Embiid dove on the floor when his knee was not good. And that to me is a winning play. And, it's taken a while for Joel Embiid to learn how to win. And the truth is, in the NBA, not everybody walks in knowing how to win. And so this development stuff is very important. So today I want to talk about what the Raptors do with their development. I want to talk about the environment of development, what it takes to develop players in the NBA based on a lot of conversations that I've had with trainers over the years, including Brian, including Eric, including the other Brian, including a lot of people who train NBA athletes, work with these teams on a week to week, sometimes month to month basis, especially in the off season, and to also maybe ponder what may be ahead for the Raptors development. Because while you are currently seeing the emergence of Colin Murray Boyles, Jamal Shed, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, you're seeing the emergence of these guys, and they are all huge, huge, huge improvements over the last couple of years in their games. I would say maybe, just maybe, there's a couple players on the Raptors bench that aren't playing very much right now, like Jamison Battle, who has come in and given you spot minutes and was the hero of game 3, possibly turned around the entire series. Maybe you're not here today if it wasn't for Jamison Battle. Not only did he turn around the entire season with that giant victory, come from behind victory against Cleveland, where the Raptors were sputtering and they just went on a huge momentum swinging, trajectory that probably pulled them out of the play-in picture during the regular season, but also in the playoffs when it's mattered the most. Now, rookies are not supposed to respond well to this pressure. People who have never been in the playoffs, the Raptors are one of the least experienced playoff teams, apart from the San Antonio Spurs. This is the least experienced playoff team in the playoffs, especially from the starting lineup perspective. RJ Barrett has played a handful of series. Scotty Barnes has played one. Emmanuel Quickley is not playing. Brandon Ingram is not playing. Jakob Poeltl has only started one playoff series in his entire life. So when we think about how this team is managing to perform above expectations and push a team that is prohibitively favored as the favorite to come out of the East right now, let's just be honest right now. Tomorrow at 7:42 p.m., the Toronto Raptors will tip off against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And as of this moment right now, with the Boston Celtics now knocked out, you are tipping off against a team that is the favorite to come out of the East. How's that for pressure? How's that for something funny? And does anybody expect the Raptors to drop tomorrow's game, even if Brandon Ingram plays? By the way, I don't think Brandon Ingram is going to help very much. That's not disrespect to Brandon Ingram. That's more of a indictment of just how much his health and injury and the matchup with the Cavs has really hindered his performance. But more than anything, whether Ingram plays or not, is anyone really going to be surprised if the Raptors keep it actually very close? If the Raptors compete, would anybody be shocked out of their minds if the Raptors just go out and get blown out by 30? This type of resilience, it is something you teach. So I not only want to talk about the players who are blossoming under Darko's system, but also the players who have yet to blossom and maybe might blossom. The players that we're talking about here are guys like Elijah Martin, guys like Grady Dick, even someone like a Brandon Ingram who is just in his like first half year with Darko. He still has another offseason to go. There's a lot of strings that you can pull on a player this talented to make him more efficient, better. But man, if you'd be crazy to not see the improvement of a Davion Mitchell from Sacramento to Miami. There was a little pit stop that he had in Toronto, and I believe that that fundamentally changed his entire career. Now he has been, kind of on the record saying he didn't really love his time in Toronto and all that stuff, but man, it made him a better player. I watched Davion today. I watched Davion in Sacramento, and I'm like, man, he's a better player. OG is a much better player than he was 3 years ago. And again, this is not like necessary development. We're not talking about a 20-year-old who got better between the ages of 20 and 23. No, we're talking about a player who was pretty stagnant for a couple of years, got with Darko for half a season, and quite frankly, got a lot better, in my humble opinion. Pascal Siakam, another player who got a lot better, looked bad for a bit, but got way better. And I think that's a pretty common trajectory with Darko players. They look really bad for a little bit as they adjust, and then they look really amazing as the development pays off. Davion looked horrible with the Raptors. Horrible. Jamal Shed, for all the highs last season, didn't have a great season last year. For a 22-year-old rookie point guard, he could honestly, last year, he could be arguably like one of the worst rotation players in the NBA. You can easily talk about someone like RJ Barrett, who has fundamentally shifted his game, and from New York to Toronto is night and day. And the playoffs that he is having right now, honestly, you can make a case that RJ Barrett has had a round that is comparable to the best rounds that DeMar DeRozan has ever had in a very similar role. Colin Murray Boyles, there were some struggles early. I could honestly say there were a lot of struggles early for Colin Murray Boyles, a lot of rim finishing issues. So Scotty Barnes last year, worst efficiency season of his life. You can easily argue that Scotty had, a lot of growing to do after last year's 27% from three. But look at the shots he was taking. What was Nick Nurse's biggest gripe with Scotty Barnes? Well, I want him to take threes. Just can't, he has the green light. He can shoot them. But it wasn't until Darko came around that he started shooting them. It wasn't until Darko came around that his entire on-ball game completely blossomed, as everyone wondered whether this buffoon who can barely speak English even knew anything when he got up to the podium and said, Scotty Barnes is going to be the future all-star. He's the face of the league, future face of the league. And that kind of conviction and that type of belief, it's very underrated. So I think about all these players that struggled early with Darko and then blossomed later with Darko. Even Emmanuel Quickley, he's had his ups and downs. He's had a ton of ups and downs. But could Emmanuel Quickley at the age of 25, now 26, actually blossom next year? There's a lot of players that you're thinking to yourself, like, maybe I want to trade them. I'm looking at a lot of posts right now. Oh, Emmanuel Quickley, trade him. RJ Barrett, trade him. Brandon Ingram, trade him. Grady Dick, trade him. Okay. But weren't the same people saying trade Scotty Barnes in preseason? They were, right? Weren't a lot of people saying like that they would include Jacoby Walter in a lot of trades, that Jamal Shed was nothing but a third string point guard, that Jamison Battle was a filler? Weren't a lot of these same people saying like Colin Murray Boyles wasn't that good? These players are really, really changing how you should think about Darko's development system. And I think Darko's development system starts with trust. And I think that's the most important thing. When you are talking about star athletes, 5-star recruits, you're talking about bringing them into a system and saying you're going to sacrifice for the team, you're going to sacrifice minutes, touches, you're going to sacrifice role, and you're going to have to trust me. Unless you're Phil Jackson or Greg Popovich or someone with NBA championships, it's going to be hard to build that trust. It's going to be hard to get that buy-in immediately. So it helps that you've established this culture in which everybody just buys in and people can just walk in and be like, well, I guess everyone else is doing it. It's kind of the same phenomenon when you're standing at a crosswalk and the sign says stop and one person goes and then suddenly everybody goes. It's similar, right? When you're in an environment where everyone buys in, when everyone sacrifices, where everyone plays defense, even players like RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram, who have been notorious throughout most of their careers for not wanting to play defense, not wanting to commit to that level, not wanting to buy in, they do buy in. And that's beautiful, which makes me think the Raptors can develop just about anyone. It makes me think that if you find the right person at the right time of their career, even if that person is a player who's been in the league for 4 or 5 years and has been kind of mediocre, maybe they have a glaring issue with their shot. Maybe they have their glaring issue with their shooting form. Maybe they have an issue with on ball creation, passing, defense. I believe that this team, under this specific coach, is probably going to bring out the best in that player. It is just nuts to me how underrated this element of development is when it comes to NBA players. Now, when people think about development, they think about skill development. A guy goes like from 25% three-point shooting to 42% three-point shooting, they praise development. When a guy ups his scoring average from 18 points to 22 points, 22 points to 26 points, they praise development, either the player's own development, their player development coach, development staff, or the team development at large. San Antonio is a team throughout most of the 2000s and the late 2000s and the early 2010s that was praised for development. Guys like DeJounte Murray, guys like Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, et cetera, et cetera. People praise the system. Currently, San Antonio and probably OKC are the hallmarks of development systems. These are places where a player goes and everyone wonders, I can't believe how did that player become so good? How did AJ Mitchell become so good? You know, these guys were tossaways. A guy like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was a throw-in in a trade from the Clippers. Now he's the league MVP and soon to be two-time league MVP. How did he get so much better? Chad Holmgren, okay, you got that. But J-Dub, Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, maybe less so, but AJ Mitchell, like some of these guys, Aaron Wiggins, like we're talking about right now, people saying Shea has the deepest team in the league. He's lucky. I don't think he's lucky. I think he's participated. I think he's bought in. And sometimes, the development shit doesn't work if your star player doesn't buy into development and isn't willing to be coached. And that's where I give Shea a lot of credit. That's the same way I give Tim Duncan a lot of credit, and I give Scotty Barnes a lot of credit. But your system still has to churn out the results, which means first and foremost, you have to identify people who actually want to get better. Now, everyone says they want to get better. Everyone says they want to get better. I'm sure you say you want to get better, but do you really want to get better? Do you know how you get better? You confront the truth about who you actually are as a basketball player. You confront your limitations. You don't just throw it up to, well, the coach didn't play me because he hated me. No, why didn't the coach play you? Are you willing to honestly acknowledge that your weak ass left hand is the reason this coach won't play you, that your inability to read off ball situations is why this coach won't play you? Are you willing to read into the fact that maybe you weren't asked to dial in defensively at the AAU level and the college level, but now that you're in the NBA and you're a big boy now and you're a third option, you're gonna have to play defense? Are you willing to confront? And I think that's where Darko really specializes. He gets players to buy in to confronting who they actually are so they can figure out who they're trying to be. There's no real path of becoming who you want to be without first confronting who you actually are as a basketball player. I think Scotty's had a lot of uncomfortable truths that he's had to face. Now, people talk about 18 points per game versus 20 points per game, and they say he hasn't developed. I think you're seeing right now that he has developed. But I don't know if you completely understand how much he's developed. So let me take you through. Scotty Barnes is my favorite player in the NBA. So some people think I can't be objective about him. But that doesn't mean that I don't see the weaknesses. I actually probably see the weaknesses just about as well, if not better than anybody. I see that maybe at times he wasn't the best leader. He was trying to be the best leader. That's important, that you care to be a good leader. He didn't know how to be a good leader. Sometimes there was a moment in a game that required him to be the most composed adult in the room, and he didn't know how to do that because he was too busy crying about a foul or bitching on the bench. There were moments in a game where a teammate makes a mistake, and instead of going up to that teammate and kind of huddling them in and bringing them back to the page, he just kind of walks away with his hands up. That, to me, Tim Duncan wouldn't do that. So he's had to learn how to be a good leader. And so the only thing that Darko needed to establish when he got here was, Scotty, do you want to be a good leader? And once the answer was yes, then the second question, which is the second follow-up question that needed to be asked, was, are you willing to hear me out on how and why you're not a good leader right now? And if the answer to that was, "No, I'm not willing to hear you out. I'm already a good leader. You just don't know what you're talking about," then the whole thing falls flat on its face. See, development gets halted when people can't listen to the truth about who they actually are. Development is going to get halted every single time a player refuses to acknowledge their own weaknesses. And I think RJ Barrett is a chief example of that. So is Scotty Barnes. So is Colin Murray Boyles. I think all these guys are people who've bought in and listened to a person who is a little bit smarter than them and a lot more organized and educated on the art of development than them. And they've bought into it. Jacoby Walter has glaring issues. RJ Barrett has glaring issues. Scotty Barnes, who's been a top 5 player in the playoffs so far, still has glaring issues. The idea here is, how do you confront this player? Do you confront them in an agitated, angry sort of way, like, Scotty Barnes, you're a shit leader? No, that'll trigger defensive mechanisms. So how do you do it? You do it brick by brick. So the first question really isn't, Scotty, do you want to learn how to be a better leader? The first question is, tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you want to do? What do you like to do off the court? Who are your friends? What are your personal hobbies? What are your big basketball dreams? The first step to development is establishing some sort of rapport with a player. You establish rapport by consistency, showing up every single day. See, I might want to develop you, but then when you see that I don't show up and I'm not prepared, suddenly the whole development thing goes to shit because now you don't know if you really trust me. I said before, Malachi Flynn was a very important cog in the Raptors development pipeline because he was absolutely shit. And there was no secret of the fact that he was absolutely shit. He was given opportunity after opportunity by Darko Rajakovic, and Darko just kept praising him. And it was so weird. It was so weird. It was so counterintuitive. We all know this guy is not getting re-signed. We all know he is a bust. I could have guaranteed you at that moment that he was going to go to China or Israel. He was not going to be in the NBA very long. He just didn't process the game well enough. He wasn't big enough. He wasn't a good enough defender. It wasn't going to work out. But Darko just kept praising him, just like, oh, I love to see him smile. You know, I told him, what did he say? He's like, oh, I told him when he smiles, he's great, but when he's when he's not smiling, he's very ugly. Again, lost in translation, he's trying to invest in the 13th guy. So when you're Scotty Barnes and you're RJ Barrett or whoever is on that team at that moment, and you're seeing that level of investment. I mean, of course, RJ Barrett was not on the team. If you're Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, whoever was on that team at that moment, Gary Trent, you're seeing an individual who is your head coach go out and actively praise your 13th man, put time into that 13th man. I think when Jamison Battle came to Toronto as an undrafted free agent, Darko put a lot of time into him as well, right? And it just kept happening this way, where day after day, Darko would show up, he would have a game plan, he'd be prepared, he would ask for feedback, he would honestly acknowledge his own weaknesses. He would never shy away from when he made a mistake. I've heard this little, side story from a couple of Raptors that when he makes a mistake, like when he makes the wrong play, wrong lineup, whatever, he's very quick when the cameras are off in the locker room to just say, you know what, guys, wrong. That was the wrong move. My mistake. That was bad. This type of collaborative leadership builds a lot of goodwill, especially when you're talking about a locker room full of mega athletes. These athletes, I've mentioned this before, they've been lied to their whole lives. They've been misled, lied to, they've been defrauded. These people are used to people telling them what they want to hear, and they've kind of learned to tune it out. This is an important thing to understand, that when most NBA athletes deal with a trainer, everybody's telling them exactly what they think they want to hear. So when they deal with an investment, advisor, they deal with an agent, they deal with a coach, a trainer, everybody's just like, oh yeah, yeah, you're great. I'm going to make you better. I'm going to make you better. But they don't want to tell them the truth, right? The thing I learned about AJ DeBonce's trainer is that AJ seeks the truth and his trainer is willing to give it to him, which is why they have a good rapport. The thing I learned about Carter Bryant is that his dad will always tell him the truth. And that's the thing I learned about Scotty and Brian, is that when Scotty needs the truth, he can always go to Brian and just be like, what did I need to do better? And that truth will always be given to him. And so the similar relationship has to be built with Darko Rajakovic now. So Jacoby Walter is observing Darko working with Jamison Battle. and he's watching what he's doing. And then the next game, he can see how what he's doing helped Jameson battle. These guys are all talking, right? They have a pulse on each other's development. RJ Barrett can see the work that Darko is putting in with Scotty, how he's making Jameson better, how he's making Jacoby better. And Brandon Ingram came in right away. And what did he say? He said, I know this team's a defensive team. I don't want to screw that up. That kind of buy-in, that like we are together, that type of resolve where everything is sputtering. 3 games in this series so far, the Raptors have been behind in a way that felt absolutely deathly inconsequential that they were going to lose that game. And they have just come and outmatched the Cavaliers. And the entire story around NBA circles right now is that, oh, the Cavaliers are failing. Donovan Mitchell's not a real number one. James Harden's choking. Evan Mobley is soft. Jared Allen is this. Kenny Atkinson's overrated. Fire Kenny Atkinson. No. The development is winning. That's the story. Family on 3. That's the story. This idea of getting people to buy into a goal that is bigger than themselves. This idea of getting people to confront the truth about themselves so that they can actually become a participant in a grander thing. This is very powerful. There's 2 types of self-sacrifice that Durkheim would talk about. And one is a lack of social integration. When a person becomes so isolated from the world, from their team, from their clan, from their family, and they spew alone in an apartment, they may think, I don't know if life is worth living. I don't know if my life is very valuable. And that might be deep for some people. But there's another side, which is an over social integration. The soldier who dives on a landmine to save his platoon is also doing the same thing, but for an opposite reason, because he's too socially integrated. So many times when I watch the playoffs, I watch teams quit on not just themselves, but on each other. I watch a team have a breakdown defensively 2 times, and I watch the star player just kind of storm off into the huddle. I've watched LeBron do this. I've watched Michael do this. I've watched Wilt do this. I've watched Kobe do this. It's not an indictment of the player all in all. I'm just saying it's never helpful. It's never been helpful. But I don't see the Raptors do this. Make or miss, I guarantee you nobody in that locker room was going to be pointing fingers at RJ Barrett for missing that shot. How much of that belief from your teammates allows you to make that shot? There's been a lot of talk about RJ's shot, right? It's the Kawhi shot. It's not the Kawhi shot, actually. It's not the Kawhi shot. You're selling it short. It's not the Kawhi shot. That RJ Barrett shot, and do me a favor at some point, go back and watch the Kawhi shot. Kawhi Leonard had taken, I think, 40 shots in that game. He had taken a ton of shots, and he had been miserably inefficient. Although it was that type of game. It was the grind out game where no one was going to score and somebody was going to score the final bucket. And in that play, with 4.3 seconds to go, Kawhi Leonard gets the ball at the top of the key. Pascal Siakam comes up. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons pull off onto Kawhi. Now, with about 2.4 seconds left on the clock, okay, Kawhi Leonard has a do or die decision. Either continue to drive into the corner where you are being hounded by 2 defenders that are considerably bigger than you, or make a pass to the wide open Pascal Siakam, who has been shooting about 36% from 3. But granted, from the corners. So this is an unusual shot to put Pascal in that situation. And Pascal had not been having a great game. And in that moment, Kawhi Leonard made this decision. He made a decision that if we're going to lose this game, if we're going to go to overtime, I'm the one who's going to get us there, or I'm the one who's going to fail. And that's admirable. That's admirable. A star player should want to take the final shot if that's what's available. Similar situation presented itself in game 6, but this situation was totally different because the players were totally different. Jigsaw Puzzle said, never mind, 39 shots, 41 points. There we go. 39 shots. You're exhausted. Kawhi mentioned at that point that he was exhausted. He had to over arc that shot because he was exhausted. And he was the hero because he hit that shot. But if he misses that shot, you go into overtime and maybe you win, maybe you lose. If you win, once again, he's still the hero because he scored the most points. And presumably he's the one who's going to get you over the hump in overtime because he's the one who can hit shots over contested defenses. But if he misses that shot and you lose in overtime, how are you talking about that 2019 championship team? Well, you're not talking about them as a championship team. And maybe, just maybe, if you miss that shot, there's a sliver of a wonder in your mind. What's more efficient, an open shot for Pascal Siakam or a contested fadeaway from the corner with 2 all-league defenders for Kawhi Leonard? He makes the shot, nobody asks the question. But I asked the question right away. In my mind, if I was on the court and I'm not Kawhi, I make that pass with 2.5 seconds. And another player who would make that pass with 2.5 seconds is Scotty Barnes. This is not to take away from Kawhi Leonard as a leader. Kawhi Leonard is an awesome leader. I hated that sometimes the Spurs, after he got traded to Toronto, said he wasn't a leader. But he's a different type of leader. He's like a, I got it, y'all follow type of leader. Whereas Scotty is like a, we got it, we rise and fall together type of leader. It's a Magic Johnson type of thing. It's a LeBron James kind of thing. Although I would argue LeBron is definitely more of a Kawhi type. But there is that type of collaborative leader, like a Larry Bird, like a Magic Johnson, where they feel like we rise and fall together as a team. And I have to say that I don't think that Scotty, like if you could measure Scotty's joy level in 2 situations. Situation number 1, hitting a pull-up fadeaway with the game on the line, down 1 over 2 defenders and being a hero, versus making the pass to get RJ Barrett one of the most iconic shots in Raptors history and having fans chant MVP, MVP at RJ Barrett, having people call it one of the most iconic plays. Him knowing that he was the one who trusted RJ in that moment, if you had to measure his joy level on those 2 plays, it's not even close. It's not even close. He lives to pass. It's not to say he's pass first. It's not to say he's never going to score 25 points per game. But in that moment, when you have 2 of the best defenders in the NBA who are on your hip, shutting down your drive to the lane, and you're not exactly like a spring chicken, you're at minute 48 that you've played, making that pass to RJ Barrett is the obvious play. It's the right basketball play. And y'all remember the game that ended LeBron's 10-point streak, double-digit streak. He said, I'm always going to make the right play. He made the pass to the corner to Austin Reeves instead of taking the shot himself. The shot that he could have taken could have extended his 10-point streak. The pass to Austin Reeves won them the game. And after the game, he said, I don't care about a record. I'm always going to be the type of person that's going to make the right play. And LeBron has 4 championships. Magic, I believe, had 5. 4 or 5. Bird had 3. Championships are won. Duncan had 4. Am I wrong? Duncan had 4 or 5? Whatever. The point is, championships are won when players sacrifice. And the Raptors have learned to sacrifice. The base building block of a championship team, in my opinion, is not a megastar talent. It's not a top 10 offense. It's not a top 10 defense. It's not a Hall of Fame coach. Was it to Rui Hachimura? Huh. I apologize. Duncan had 5. There we go. My bad. It was Rui. My bad. Why did I think it was Austin Reeves? My bad. Giving Austin Reeves Rui Hachimura's credit. My bad. I do know Austin played that game, right? He did play that game, but he did not get the final shot. It was Rui Hachimura. Yes, I remember. It was Rui Hachimura to the left corner makes the shot. Yes. Heartbreaker. The point here is championship teams are built on sacrifice. Players have to be willing to sacrifice minutes and touches. Players have to be willing to play defense. This is all sacrifice. And sometimes players have to be willing to play hurt, play injured, play 48 minutes when they're gassed, but they have to play for each other. They're playing for something larger than themselves. Teams that are selfishly oriented, which is exactly my issue with the 2022 Raptors, is that they were selfishly oriented. Everything about that team spewed this narrative of I get mine, fuck the team. That can never win championships. And frankly, that ruins development. So I think the base building block of development and championships is exactly the same: humility, sacrifice, team first. I've heard so many stories over the last couple of years about Raptors practices, a lot. And we're talking about guys like Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, who've kind of passed through. And a lot of people, wondered why those guys were here. Why was Otto Porter here? Why were some of these guys here? Otto Porter maybe, less of a thing, but he was here for a little bit of Darko's tenure. You look at guys like Garrett Temple. Why are these guys here? Jakob Poeltl, why is he here? This is a part of your development. Bruce Brown won a championship with the Denver Nuggets. I may not like the guy, but he knows how to play basketball. He has tendencies that have, weirdly enough, bled into RJ Barrett and Jacoby Walter. I can see it. I can totally see ways in which watching Bruce Brown has helped some of the wings on this team implement better ideas. So now I just keep thinking about development. And when I think about development, I think about it a little bit like this. Hold on, let me show you. This is what when I think about, what the hell? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, did I get rid of it? My bad. I was thinking about an exponential growth chart. When I think about development, I don't think of it like in a linear sense. I think of it very much like this. So it makes me think, where are the Raptors in this little thing that we're talking about here? Hold on, I just want a visual representation of this. Sorry, just give me one sec here. Exponential growth. Here we go. So in terms of like, where are the Raptors in terms of their exponential growth? I think they're somewhere probably towards the bottom. I doubt that they're anywhere close to the top. Hang on. Oh, it's a web.p. So I gotta make it a screenshot. Give me one sec here. Okay. I think they're in the beginning stages of it. I guess that's what I'm saying. Give me one sec. There we go. So in terms of where are we on this little chart? Where's Grady? Where's Scotty? Where's RJ? Where's BI? Where's this team? Where are they heading? Right? And I think about this and I'm like, I don't think they're anywhere close to the top. I can see the issues. I can see all the glaring, stuff. I know CMB and Jacoby and Jamal are going to be much better players next year. I know Scotty's going to be a better player next year. I could even argue that RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram are going to be better players next year. I can definitely say that Emmanuel Quickly is going to be a better player next year. Right. And I think about this and I'm like, man, there's a real chance that the Raptors could be like a 60-win team next year. And we really are just done with this. Would you be shocked if the Raptors are a 60-win team next year? I wouldn't be shocked if this is a 56 to 60-win team next year. I really wouldn't. And this is a team that is stupid young right now. And this is a team that has levers to pull. They have all their first-round draft picks. They have a 19th overall pick coming up. They have a good track record of developing in that sense. They have a lot of players, in my opinion, that just have not developed properly yet. But again, as I said with the Darko thing, it's like, yo, man, like, you have players on this team that have looked really bad and then have gone on to look really good. Pascal looked really bad with the Raptors. And then he went to the Indiana Pacers and he looked really good. Scotty looked really bad last year. Now he looks great, So I look at someone like Grady Dick right now. I'm like, Grady looks horrible. Grady looked horrible this year. But within the horrible, there was growth. There was a ton of growth. Mamu is another example. Mamu's had the best season of his life. Davion had the best season of his life this year. OG had the best season of his life. Pascal had the best season of his life last year in terms of a total accomplishment of individual goals standpoint. You just go down the list. Scotty's having the best career. He's having a career year right now. This is the best that anyone could have expected in the playoffs. RJ is having the best playoff run of his life. At this point, I just can't even look at this and just say this is just all an accident. Oh yeah, it's all an accident. The same guy keeps coaching all these players and they just keep shattering expectations. Oh, it's an accident. These two showing up in the biggest way imaginable is just a fucking accident. It's not an accident. It can't be just an accident. So I have to wonder, who can't the Raptors develop? The genius thing about this is every team, every single team that has ever been a small market team, right, has had this question of how do we compete? Currently, we have the NBA draft, right? Like the NBA draft cycle and everything. Everyone's just like, wait a second. Like you're making it harder for these super bad teams to compete. Well, maybe you need to go and hire a coach who can make your young players better. Maybe that's the real secret. Maybe you need to hire a coach that can get a player who for years has been criticized for not playing defense to actually play defense. Maybe that's what you really need. Maybe what you need is the type of coach who can turn, I don't know, like a player who just does not play defense typically, who doesn't stay healthy, who won't adjust his shot diet, who won't take a more efficient role, who thinks of himself. Maybe you need a coach who can take an undersized rookie and turn him into an absolute beast in the playoffs in one season of development. Look, development is never linear. Why is it not linear? Well, it's not linear for a million reasons. One of the reasons being that players don't grow at the same pace. There's certain players like a Victor Wembanyama, they have like rapid learning curves. But one of the biggest reasons that learning curves don't go flat and there's not a consistent growth of, like, as Darko says, 10 points, 15 points, 20 points, is because so much of development is decluttering. It's removal of bad ideas. It's trying out new ideas, experimentation, implementation, development. These are really ugly. I want you to imagine that you have a player that is extremely, extremely left-hand dominant. We have plenty on this team. Okay. I want you to imagine that they also have a really hitchy flat release on their jump shot. And the third weakness that this player has is that they pick up their dribble far too often. Right? Okay. So we have a player who's left-hand dominant, right? Hitchy release, picks up his dribble far too often. This is a combination of two players. I'm specifically not talking about one player on the Raptors. So how do you get them to change? Well, the first step is obviously observation. You observe them, you watch them, you build rapport, you build trust, you allow them to see you working with other people. You use the player that is most open to development and use them as a case study for your entire team to observe your powers and development. Now, you're probably about 4 months in, and now you can start tinkering. Thank you. Yes, this is exactly the player I was talking about. So how do you change this? You change it step by step, right? You're not going to go and ban a left-hand dominant player and have them look like an absolute idiot by telling them to go to their right hand every single time. That is going to require some sacrifice here because that player is going to say to you, fuck you. I have a contract coming up and I'm not willing to buy into your little Frankenstein experiment here with my contract expiring. And I'm going to shoot 10% worse in the field. And everyone's going to say I'm a really, really bad player. I'm not going to do this. Do you know how hard it is to get a player who's left-hand dominant to go to their right hand more often than their left hand as a development? It was so obvious today that Jaylen Brown has so many issues with his handle, his left-hand dominance. He's so predictable. To anyone who has ever tried to tell me that Jaylen Brown is a top 5 player, miss me with that bullshit. You're not even close. He's not close. He's a good player, and salute to him for guarding Joel Embiid. That's very, very positionally versatile of him, but you gotta be kidding me. I wish Jaylen Brown had a Darko Rajakovic in his rookie season because Jaylen Brown is really smart, and Jaylen Brown is a really hard worker. But maybe Jaylen Brown just didn't get the right feedback, the right information, the right system to experiment. People were so busy in trying to get him to be the best version of himself, they didn't realize that the version of himself that he really needed to be wasn't really himself, but rather somebody else. And that's when I think about how do you make the adjustment to this hitchy left-hand finisher who picks up their dribble too early? Well, maybe you do it by quarter. Maybe you say, okay, one for you, one for me. Show me how you want to do it. Now we're going to try one quarter where you're going to go right at least 3 times. So you're not banning the left hand. You're just saying when the left is taken away, I want you to go right. And if you don't do it, we're going to have an accountability journal or we're going to have an accountability board in the locker room or something like that. So we're just going to we're baby stepping it. We're not dictators. We're not assholes. We're not calling them out in front of everybody. We're calling them up privately. We're having that tough conversation with them privately. And then when we're in public, we're saying they're amazing. They come to practice every day. They're really, really hard workers. What does Darko say? I coach privately. I praise publicly. That's been his mantra forever. So now, what are you really building? You're building a better basketball player. So now the player is able to see themselves as more than a left-handed finisher. We're building new muscle memory. We're building new patterns, and we're breaking old patterns. This first month of going right more often than left or having this quarter, this player is going to struggle immensely because they're breaking muscle patterns that they've been developing for years. They're breaking habits. This whole like if you pick up your dribble 3 times on a two dribble drive, you're going to the bench or something like that, or we're going to pull you out and we're going to bring you back in or something like that. This is breaking a pattern. And the cool thing about disrupting patterns when it comes to neuroscience, especially with players under the age of 25, is that when you break one cluster, it breaks every cluster. It's kind of awesome when you do this. The ideas in your brain from a neuroscience perspective are webbed together. When they say objects that fire together, wire together, right? There's a reason why a lot of guys will be star players in high school, star players in university, and then come into the league, and they can't even understand. They can't reconcile. Their brain cannot accept. Now I'm a spot player off the bench. They can't do that. So this is always considered a begrudging sacrifice. They might do it, but they can't thrive in that role because they don't know how to buy into it because they can't see themselves in that role. So they try to be stars within the 5 minutes that they have, and then they end up in a Jonathan Kuminga situation where they just cannot buy into a role where they can't see the bigger vision of how the team is planning to use them or grow with them. If Jonathan Kuminga wanted, honestly, to buy in, if he had a different mentality, if he had a different coach, if he just had somebody in his ear who could explain the longer term vision, I can guarantee you Jonathan Kuminga will be the future face of the Golden State Warriors because he's that talented. Unfortunately, he's not that willing. He's not that willing. So now he is a complimentary piece in Atlanta and probably going to be on another team within a couple of years. That's just the Jonathan Kuminga story. And, years from now, when people talk about Jonathan Kuminga, they'll say, oh, he was so talented. He was so talented. I wonder why he didn't work out. It's not a coincidence that this type of player doesn't work out. It's because they don't have the right guidance. They don't have the right approach. They don't have the right coaching. And they certainly do not have the right mentality when it comes to this stuff. So this decoupling mentally, when you're talking about like the neuroscience of breaking a habit, it's like when you're in traffic and you get mad at somebody and you spaz and you repeat this thought. I think there was a study done. It's like 95% of the thoughts you have on an average day. You have thousands of thoughts every single day. 95% of them are repetitive thoughts. So I look at someone like Scotty Barnes, and now he's super into plays. Like he's into stage plays now, and he's into reading books. And this is part of the disruption of the cycle because you're making it so that less than 95% of his thoughts will be the same thoughts every day. You're exposing him to new things. You're sending him to Hamlet. You're sending him to different stage plays. You're asking him to read a chapter of a book. You're asking him questions about it, and again, you're challenging him in a different way. You're asking because again, the spirit is right, the intention is right, and when the spirit and the intention is right, when you meet a kid who's 22, 23 years old, and all they want to do is win, and you can see that in them, then everything else is easy. Because see, you're here, and you want to get here, and here is winning, and here's where you are. Once I know where you want to go, the only challenge for me is finding a way to get you from point A to point B. And once I know that point B is winning, then point A becomes irrelevant because now I just have to meet you where you are and have to guide you successfully on the path to winning. And that's what the Raptors have done. What they have done is they have basically ignored talent, fit, athleticism, size, roster construction. They've ignored almost everything that a logical franchise would in terms of a draft perspective. And they've asked one serious question about every single player they bring into their organization. Does this person want to win? Does this person want to win championships? Does this person want to be a winner? Do they want to win basketball games? Is winning just cool to them, or is winning like necessary to them? Like could they have 30 points and they lose a game and they're just like totally chill? Is that the type of player that this person is? Or is this the type of person who's like got 2 points, he had 3 minutes, but his team won and he's overjoyed? I think they found that in Elijah Martin. I think they found that in Colin Murray Boyles. I think they found that in Scotty Barnes. But you know what's interesting? They also found that in RJ Barrett. I was looking back at RJ Barrett's draft, and it's touching, because he's Canadian and he's up there with his father, Rowan Barrett. And Rowan Barrett says he just wants to win. He just wants to win. RJ got to New York and they were a bad team. A year later, they weren't a bad team anymore. They were a good team. Have him tell it. He's a really big part of turning around that organization. And now he's in Toronto. And for the first 2 years of his career, they haven't really been a very good team. But they've been getting better. And now he's showing up in the biggest moment, and he is absolutely every bit of a playoff riser, and he is finding a way. One of the channel members here sent me a DM today. It was a really interesting DM, and I actually want to read it to you. It was great, and it was about RJ Barrett. And obviously, he's a slightly bigger RJ Barrett fan than I am, but it was good. And I responded and I said that's really a great way to put it. So I just want to give Stephen Caffrey a bit of flowers for this. So the DM was as follows: says playoff success changes a lot of opinions. The best way I can say it: I'm not rich. I don't have a lot of extra money. I bought a house. The floors needed to be done. I learned. I had a water leak. I learned how to become a plumber, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted the house. And I said, that's a really good way to think about RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett wanted to be a star. RJ Barrett was called the Maple Mamba. RJ Barrett wants to be a 25-point per game scorer. RJ Barrett wants to play at home. RJ Barrett wants to do a lot of things. But I think what the Raptors hopefully have identified right now, watching RJ for the last 2 years scale down his role to accommodate Scotty at times, scale down his role to accommodate Brandon Ingram, especially, scale down his touches, change his usage profile, up the aggression defensively, guard, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley in these playoffs. I think what you're finding about RJ Barrett is that what he wants to do more than anything is win. And what he wants to do second most of all is stay at home. And so the carrot has been dangled for RJ Barrett. Buy in or get out. It's the same thing that they kind of had for Gary Trent Jr., which was if you can defend, you can be a part of this. And if you can't, you can't. And for RJ Barrett, for all the warts and all the issues, systemically, defensively, fit oriented, all that stuff, I think these playoffs are showing you that maybe you need to invest in this guy long term. Maybe he's such an integral part of your culture in terms of the physicality that he brings, in terms of the leadership that he brings. And don't get it twisted. He is a natural born leader, a very, very good one at that. I've known this about RJ since Montverde, that he is just one of those guys that you go with him, right? When he goes, you go with him. When he says, we got this, you trust him. That's leadership. And he's a hard worker. That's what his dad said at a draft night, right? Like, he is a hard worker. He's going to get better every single summer. He's going to get better every single year. And so, as much as RJ is blossoming, he is 25 years old. Is it possible that RJ Barrett can improve on the things that a lot of people think he can improve on? Like, I understand he's never going to be the defender that Jacoby Walter is right now. And I understand that. I understand he's probably, his shooting form does not lend itself to becoming like a 40% three-point shooter. But if he can be a 20% better defender and a 10% better three-point shooter, I don't mean 10% better as in like his percentage goes up 10%. I'm saying like if he can be consistently 36, 37% on wide open catch and shoots, can he not function? I mean, he and Scotty have had fairly positive synergy for the last 2-3 years in terms of like on-off data. I would argue that Scotty's scoring numbers go down, but I think Scotty would argue he doesn't care. I think Scotty would say, I'm happy to pass to RJ Barrett. I love passing to RJ. I want RJ to score 24, 25 points. What's been annoying is fans who think that RJ is the better player. To me, at least, that's always been a little annoying because I know that he's not. But that doesn't diminish that RJ's been awesome. That's the point. And so I look at all of this and I say, you've identified all these players who want to win, and now you're finally winning. And I think that when I think about this little graph, I think about this little chart that I was pointing to earlier. When I think about this, I think the Raptors are somewhere in the middle of this. I think they've been pouring fuel all over their entire organization for like the last 3 years, planting the seeds, establishing the culture. And I think right now you are on the evening of lighting a match and dropping it on the fuel. I think you are on the evening of possibly changing your franchise and your trajectory for the next 8 years tomorrow night. Win, lose, or draw. You can't draw, unfortunately. Win or lose. It doesn't change what this series has established. And what this series has established is that Darko was hired for a reason, and he has accomplished that. What this series has also established is that not only is he a development coach, but he is also a coach that can probably take you through the playoffs and lead you to championships. This has been such a validation for every person who comes into this organization. This team is for real. This development is for real. This coach is for real. For years now, Darko has battled against media scrutiny, doubt from people who don't understand him, who don't believe in him, who don't believe in this team. Fine. Okay. I get it. I get it. You know, sometimes he's saying things that are going over your head. And very often when you try to speak with non-intellectuals about intellectual things, they reject it and they say you're overcomplicating things. When he says, Malachi Flynn, I just want him to smile, people don't understand that he understands implicitly that Malachi Flynn needs to play with joy. When he talks about challenging Scotty as a leader, people don't understand what he means by that. When he talks about, you know, Brandon Ingram fitting in beautifully and all the stuff that Brandon Ingram is doing, people don't understand that. And when he talks about the overall development philosophy that he has about building things floor by floor, people are just like, yeah, but why aren't you a good defensive team? Early in this season, by the way, I just want to remind you that this top 5 defense was literally the 28th or 29th defense in the NBA. Do you remember that? Do you remember that phase? Give me W in the chat if you remember. The Toronto Raptors early in the season were a bottom 5 defense. Do y'all remember that? Oh, what is Darko doing? He doesn't have this. He doesn't have the mobility on the perimeter to go, you know, no. What he did was he challenged their fitness. What he did was he didn't allow them to hide. There was this early thing that Darko said was, we're not hiding our defensive issues. We're not running from them. He got buy-in from his team because he was the coach who was coaching a bottom 5 defense. So he let them know, "You're gonna look bad, and I'm gonna take the brunt of it. So you are gonna go out there and try to guard Jalen Green with 40 feet of space and no rotation behind you, no gap help, and I'm gonna answer the media with my chest and say, 'We're in a process.'" Some of you know that I run a film festival, the Pendance Film Festival. And in 2019, we selected a film called To the Night by Peter Brunner. He won Best Director for that film. It's a super awesome film to anyone who ends up going to watch it at some point in their lives. It's a great film with Caleb Landry Jones and Eleanor Hendricks. Wonderful film. Austrian film, but English. And in it, the main protagonist is going through this mental thing where he believes that he can undo his trauma by shutting off his brain and rebooting it, which implies like killing himself for a minute or a second and rebooting his brain. And it's a really fascinating exploration of trauma and grief and how these things manifest themselves. But the character is very sloppy. He's very flawed. He's extremely polarizing, and he does things that no protagonist can ever be rooted for. And a lot of people hated the film because of it. Some people walked out of it. And when the director was defending the film, he just said, Norman, who's the character, is in a process. He's in a process. And the process is not pretty, but he's trying to come out on the other end of it. And the director, Peter Brunner, who's a friend of mine now, said, "I always respect people who are in this flow of process because you see, we don't have a respect for process in 2026. We think people are or they aren't. This guy's a bum or he's not. We have very little patience for process. And I, for one, am very thankful that we have a coach who has boundless patience for process. He didn't think about his job. He didn't think about looking good. He didn't think about how the media was treating him. He didn't think about, and the players extended that mentality. They bought into picking up high so that they could learn how to fix themselves as switch defenders. Right now, you're watching some of those players guard Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. Go watch the first few games of this season and look at how badly the very same coverages that are now killing the Cavaliers were looking for the Raptors. That's development. That's development. Look at Jacoby Walter as a rookie trying to attack off the dribble and barely being able to put two dribble moves together, and now attacking a closeout with a reverse on Jared Allen. Go look at Scotty Barnes' super high dribble the last year that Nick Nurse was here, as people wondered if he would ever get better. And then go look at Scotty Barnes now. It's night and day. Go look at RJ Barrett's compete level defensively in New York, and now look at his compete level defensively here. It's night and day. Even look at Brandon Ingram. And so I'm once again left with this conclusion that the Toronto Raptors can develop almost anyone. This is exciting for the players who have developed, like Jacoby Walter and Jamal Shedd, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Colin Murray Boyles, because I don't think they're anywhere close to developing fully, and I am looking forward to them getting even better next year. This is also super exciting for players who haven't quite broken through yet. Guys like Jonathan Mobo, Elijah Martin, Grady Dick, AJ Lawson, Chucky Hepburn. Guys like this might have a surprise pop this summer. We don't know, because this little growth chart, you don't see the gap between 1 and 2 at all. You don't see the gap between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5. These are imperceptible gaps. It's really around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that you start to see any tangible growth, especially when you compare 8 to 1, you really start to see it. And then 9, 10, 11, you start to see real growth. And then 12, you're like, oh my God, he's a fucking star. And then 13, you're like, oh my God, he's an all-star. And then 14, you're like, oh my God, he's a superstar. And then by 15, you're like, oh, he might actually be the best player in the league. Not every single player is going to get to 15, 14, 13, or 12. But maybe some player who's currently at 2 will get to 4 by next year. And suddenly, Jonathan Mobo is being talked about as one of the scrappiest defenders off the bench. Or maybe Grady Dick is being talked about as one of the most surprised developments. Oh, I thought his career was dead in the water. And suddenly, look at him. He's shooting 43% from 3. Grady has bought into the process. It's looked very ugly. The Raptors media has not covered it properly, in my opinion. The struggles that he's gone through this year, people just think he forgot how to shoot or he doesn't work hard enough. I really believe that the fact that he bought into expanding his body and making himself stronger, and it's the same thing with Jonathan Mobo. Dude, I watched Jonathan Mobo in the G League today, this year. I was stunned by his growth, but people don't see him playing. Trace Jackson Davis is another one. Sandro Mamukelashvili is another one. I could see all these players getting better next year. I could also see some of them not being on the team. At which point, I'm now thinking about the 19th overall pick. I'm thinking about the 19th overall pick. I'm thinking about your free agent signing, potentially players you trade for. And now I am thinking about this concept that I had about lighting the match, right? The fuel in the match. You've lit the match already. As far as I'm concerned, going to a game 7 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were heavily favored against you, I believe the fact that Scotty is viewed the way that he is right now, the fact that RJ has blossomed and turned around his career the way that he has from New York to now, I think Darko can now, he has less of a task to now get people to believe in what he's saying. So now when the 19th overall pick comes in, he's not dealing with some random coach who just got the job and is talking about you smiling more. He is dealing with a professional basketball coach who is on a playoff team, who coaches the playoff team, has the respect of a whole bunch of players who were in the playoffs last year. And that is the coach who is telling you that your shot form is broken. It's completely different. It's completely different. The messaging is different. The authority behind the message is different. The buy-in is different. And so I feel like right now, this organization has lit the match. They've lit the development match. And I can't wait to see who blossoms out of it, because I have a feeling that 2 to 3 players are going to emerge this summer from this team that are going to be like, whoa, I didn't know he was that good. Maybe next year we're talking about Elijah Martin as the stopper off the bench. Maybe next year we're talking about Grady as a specialist shooter off the bench. Maybe we're talking about Jameson Battle as a more complete player. Maybe we're talking about Jacoby Walter as a permanent starter. Maybe we're talking about Colin Murray-Boyles as an all-star within 2 years. Maybe we are talking about Brandon Ingram as a player who has finally adapted his shooting form because of what he went through in the playoffs with this team, and watching his team succeed without him click that thing in his brain that's never, ever clicked, which is, I'm the problem, I need to change. It's possible. It's really hard when someone challenges you to change. Really hard. When someone asks you to change your diet, change your habits, change your response to anger, change your study habits, change your, anything. Change is hard. That's why most people don't change. Change is very difficult. When people ask you to change your game from a isolation heavy scorer to a movement scorer off of cuts, to a guy who takes a lot of middies, to a guy who takes a lot of corner threes, this is hard. But what makes that change easier is seeing the work flourish, to be praised for the work, to see other people acknowledging that the work is showing up. There's proof of concept, resistance removes, players get better. So right now, as much as people are enjoying the Toronto Raptors 2026 playoff run, which has culminated potentially in the biggest game in Raptors history since 2019, right now, I am thinking forward, as I always am. I am never, I think one of my biggest struggles is I struggle to stay where my 2 feet are. So I'm always thinking back and I'm always thinking forward and I'm always trying to process 3 timelines all at once. I'm thinking about that draft right now. I'm thinking about this summer. I'm thinking about trades. I'm thinking about extensions. I'm thinking about all sorts of things. And I'm thinking about Summer League. I am so looking forward to Summer League. I can't wait to see Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram on the sidelines in Summer League cheering on the 19th overall pick, the 50th overall pick, Elijah Martin, and all these guys. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see Jonathan Mobo emerge, because I think that guy works way too hard. And I've seen too much development from him to believe that he's just going to go out sad. Like, I just don't believe that. A lot of people are giving up on him right now. I don't believe I'm giving up on him. I'm not. I'm not giving up on Jonathan Mobo. I'm not giving up on Grady Dick completely. I was never really that bought in to begin with, but I believe that I have seen tangible growth. Like, everyone is super down on Grady right now. I am more like, yo, he got better as a defender. He tried what you want him to do. You wanted him to drive more recklessly. He goes to the basket with reckless abandon. This guy's the most coachable player in the NBA. Grady might be one of the most coachable players in the NBA. He's just not very good right now. And so, Does it help to maybe view Grady the way Darko viewed Grady? What did Darko say about Grady when he was a rookie? Does anyone remember the exact quote? I'll give you a hint. 16. Does anyone remember it? Does anyone remember the exact quote of Darko talking about Grady Dick? Fans are saying the front office should trade Ingram. Well, the same fans were saying the front office should trade Scotty Barnes. Maybe we shouldn't listen to those fans. From the past to the present to the future, ain't nothing changed. This kid's got game. Talking about Grady Dick? That was not the quote. I don't think you're talking about Grady Dick. The exact quote was he has the body of a 16-year-old. That's the exact quote. Darko Rajakovic said that Darko has had a lot of what I call Darko-isms. I'm treating Chris Boucher like a rookie, et cetera, et cetera. He's a 16-year-old or something like that. Yes. He said he has the body of a 16-year-old. So you have somebody with the body of a 16-year-old and the game of maybe a 25-year-old, right? Grady's game is a lot more advanced than people realize. A lot more advanced. I've seen this guy make high level reads. There's a reason why someone like Samson Folk, like who studies the tape as much as he does, he's not a fanboy. Like Samson's not a fanboy. He keeps it real. He believes in Grady a lot. And Grady has just not produced at the NBA level the way you want a 13th overall pick to produce, because he's coming with all this pedigree of like Gatorade National Player of the Year, consensus 5-star recruit, McDonald's All-American, et cetera, Kansas product, lottery pick. You have a certain expectation that this guy's supposed to come out of the box and fucking be like, I don't know, Luke Kennard or Devin Booker or some shit like that. But that's not always the way it goes. And I think the only way that this fails is if Grady doesn't do the work. Because if Grady does the work, and what is the work? Well, Grady is the player that we're talking about here, aren't we? We're talking about a one-hand dominant player who doesn't finish strong through contact because he doesn't have the body to finish strong through contact. We're talking about a guy who has technique issues defensively. We're talking about a guy who physically cannot guard any position on the court with reasonable efficiency. So what do you do with a player like that? If you're a normal coach, not Darko, if you're Nick Nurse, you stand him in the corner, you work with his somewhat limited release, and you say, well, I know you can't shoot from 25 feet because your form and your strength are not there. So we're going to stand you in the corner where you can take 22.5-foot jumpers, and we're just going to make you we're going to make you a corner shooter who takes middies. And that's going to be your entire role. On defense, we're going to hide you. That is what we're going to do with you. And Grady will look fine. He would look fine. He wouldn't be great. He'd be very limited. He'd be likely schemed out in the playoffs. He'd be hunted. Certainly he would be hunted. He would never expand his game to be a reasonable screener because he doesn't have the strength to screen. He would never really expand his game to be a finisher because he can't finish through contact. He's not strong enough. He wouldn't be able to gain separation because his athleticism, while reasonable, is not exceptional. So you'd have a 6'8" Luke Kennard with slightly worse jump shooting mechanics. But that's not what the Raptors did. That's not what the Raptors did. They challenged his shooting form. They challenged him to guard point of attack defensively. They didn't stand him in the corner. They didn't just let him take the diet of midi shots that he wants to take, which he's, by the way, really good at. They've already seen a proof of concept, and I don't think y'all remember entirely, but like to the people who realize, like, Grady started out year 2 with people talking about him as a top 4 pick. This is not a guy who has failed spectacularly like Kobe Buffkin or even my favorite, Jordan Hawkins, who had moments in his rookie season, but really has just fallen off a cliff since then. I look at guys like Grady and I'm just like, it's just not, we just haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen the player that they're trying to build. But you don't walk up to a house that's been unearthed, torn down. They're laying the foundation. They've put the beams in. They put the foundation in. They put the floors in and say, well, we can't live here, man. This house sucks. No, the house is not complete. The walls have not been put in yet. The roof has not been put in yet. Of course you can't sleep here, you fucking idiot. Of course you can't sleep here. It's not done. But the only way that this whole project fails with Jonathan Mobo, Grady Dick, Elijah Martin, and guys like this that the Raptors obviously believe enough in to, bring them in. The only way this completely fails is if they stop working, if they stop buying in. But Grady has done what you've asked him to do. You asked him to guard point of attack and look like a fool, and he did. You asked him to pick up at 40 feet, and he did. And he got blown by every single time as fans booed him. You ask him to take, above the break threes. You ask him to put on weight and still maintain himself as a shooter as he works into his new body. And he did. You asked him to hit the weight room and he did. You asked him to put on weight and he did. You asked him to be a better defender, to be more active, to sit more in the gaps, to, be a better rebounder. You asked him to attack the basket with reckless abandon, regardless of whether he had a shot or not. And he missed layup after layup after layup after layup as fans jeered him and said, he is a bust. I think every bust in NBA history has one thing in common. They didn't do what Grady did. They didn't buy into the role. They rejected the role. They didn't buy into the challenge. They rejected the challenge. They didn't open their mind to what was wrong with their game. They blamed everyone around them. That's what busts are. I don't think Grady's going to be a bust. That's my hot take. I don't think Grady's going to be a bust. I don't think he's going to be a all-star. I don't think he's going to be an all-NBA guy. I'll be surprised if at this point he's a starter, but I don't think he's going to be a bust. And I, for one, have really high hopes for what he can become this summer. And again, bonus, sign that extension. If you really believe in him right now, sign that extension. 3 years, 4 years, 20 million, get him on the cheap. And if you can develop him into a mid-range, like there's a conceptual problem here where Darko understands what Scotty is. There was y'all remember the Serbian interview? Croatian interview, sorry. Serbo-Croatian interview between Darko and Tony Horvat, where he was talking about Scotty Barnes the first year he took the job, and he said he's like Jokic for me. Do y'all remember that? Right. So that's the problem. Darko sees Scotty like 3-4 years ahead. He sees him how I see him, right? Which is for the player he's going to be. And there's a little bit of imagination that's required to get there mentally as a player struggles in the ways that Scotty is struggling. And it's the same thing with Grady. Darko has always talked very glowingly about Grady Dick, right? Very glowingly. Like you listen to any interview that he's ever done on Grady, he's just like always like talking about like 4 or 5 years from now, 3-4 years from now. I'd be very surprised if the Raptors just give up on him. I'd be so surprised because I think that like the Jokic, future face of the league, Scotty Barnes, who's struggling to create offense against, the Brooklyn Nets and the Sacramento Kings in year 4, I think they look at Grady the same way. There's an issue with Grady, which is because he's white in large part, and because he's billed as a shooter, and because there's this like sort of tag on him that people expect him to shoot. And that's just how people measure his growth. They don't care about his defense. They don't care about his driving. They don't care about his screening. They don't care about the gap help. They don't care about the team defense. They don't care about the hip mobility. They don't care about the strength. They don't care about any of that. Grady Dick gets cheered for shooting and making shots. And when he doesn't make shots, people say he sucks. Scotty Barnes is the same. When Scotty Barnes hits threes, very few people care. When Scotty Barnes dunks the basketball, people like him. That's just how it is. Part of the reason why people are very complimentary of Scotty Barnes right now is because he is doing exactly what they think he should do, which is drive the ball every single time, be super physical and super assertive. They're not cheering him for all the passes he's making, though, because he wasn't compared to Magic Johnson. He was compared to Draymond Green. But the truth is, Scotty's gifts are his passing and his overall game, his defense, his playmaking, his ability to... His future is in the mid-range. His future is as a mid-range isolation demon. His future is very Jokic meets Kawhi, meets Scottie Pippen, meets those guys. But people want him to be Giannis so badly because that's the only path they can see. And it's the same thing with Grady. People want Grady to play like other white shooters. If he took the same shots that Luke Kennard did, people would be happy. If he hit most of them, they'd be super happy. But that's not how the Raptors see Grady Dick. The Raptors see Grady Dick as a very complete basketball player. The Raptors see Grady Dick as a playmaker. The Raptors see Grady Dick as a potentially competent defender someday. The Raptors see Grady Dick as, I don't know, possibly a sixth man of the year type of candidate. The Raptors see Grady Dick like an on-ball creator or a secondary creator. The Raptors see Grady as a playmaker and an isolation scorer. They see him as a spot-up threat, but also as a movement shooter. They see him as a player who can impact the game on like 5, 6 levels, not as a corner shooter. They see Jameson Battle and Ochai Agbaji as corner shooters, limited in their abilities. When you're working with high-level lottery talent like Colin Murray-Boyles, it's the same thing Colin Murray-Boyles right now. In fact, by the way, Colin Murray-Boyles right now, a lot of people are talking about him like he's Draymond Green. The Raptors do not see Colin Murray-Boyles like he's Draymond Green at all. At all. No chance in hell. The Raptors see Colin Murray-Boyles like a future 15 to 25 point, probably a 20 point per game scorer in his prime. The Raptors see Colin Murray-Boyles as a possible, another possible secondary creator, a driver of offense, a guy who can drive transition, a guy who can maybe anchor a defense someday. They see him as much more than Draymond Green. They see him, they definitely see him as a guy who can hit threes. 100%. There's no way. They've worked on 3-point shooting with Colin Murray-Boyles every practice this year. There's no chance in hell he's turning into Draymond Green for this team. No, they have Mula Meach said, Rob, have you noticed Scotty's midi is effortless now? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. We have a super chat here. I want to give shout out to Ignite Events, R5K. Pen off topic, but your wisdom has helped me so much in life. I use you as my mentor. I got so much respect for you, man. Go Raptors. Man, that is that's very humbling and very touching. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. That's super kind of you, man. And thank you so much for the super chat. Mula Meach said, Randall meets Draymond. Yeah, sure. Isolation scoring, second side attacks, a little bit like how the Raptors use RJ Barrett, but with even more force and even more physicality. I think you're seeing right now that in the playoffs, physicality wins, and the Raptors' 3 strongest players are the ones who are doing well in the playoffs. That's not shocking. What about Jacoby? Like, look at the pipeline and the growth of Jacoby. Like, we could get so much further with Jacoby. I was talking with Eric, Jacoby's trainer, and we're having this whole running dialogue during the game. And like, y'all have no idea how high they're aiming, but they do not. They are not settling at like, oh, he's just going to be like a 9th guy on the bench, 8th guy on the bench on a good team. No, they are aiming very high with Jacoby. This is the same guy who trains Cason Wallace. Okay. Like, they want this guy to be really fucking good. Zigsaw Puzzle said, Rob, you saw CMB practice right-handed hook shots before game 6. Yeah, I did see footage of that. So yeah, like, we're at a point right now where everyone is kind of bought in. Every player on this team is now able to spread the good gospel of Darko Rajakovic to the rest of the league. Every young player who's going to come in this year, which will include the 50th pick, the 19th pick, most likely, if the Raptors don't trade in for an extra pick, probably a free agent, maybe a mid-level, maybe a minimum guy, and possibly an undrafted rookie to take one of those two-way spots, provided, AJ Lawson, Chucky Hepburn, these guys don't continue to take those spots. Maybe someone to replace Garrett Temple. Who knows? All of these players are going to come in and they're going to have the gospel of Darko, right? They're going to have like the proof of Darko. I can't wait. The next 12 months of Raptors basketball, and I want to say the next 13 months because I want to include next year's playoffs, are going to be an absolute, in my opinion, again, my opinion, 100% my opinion, are going to be a joyride. They are going to be like, again, I'll point to this little graphic here. If we are at like, let's say we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think we're at like 10 right now. I think that's where we are. We're like kind of in the middle. We're at like around 10. Y'all count the bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're at 10. Okay. We're at 10 in these playoffs. Maybe we're 9 during the regular season. We're at 10 right now. The Raptors have done everything. They know they can't skip steps. Darko always talks about, we can never skip steps. But they have put all of these steps into hyperspeed. Training all offseason last year, mini camp, coming into training camp early, busting their balls in training camp, having actual practices. Do y'all realize how many practices the Raptors had this year? It's not normal for playoff teams to practice as much as the Raptors did this year, but they have people who buy into that. So they do. They do so much film study. Even with Brandon Ingram, they're doing film study. Like they were doing film study before he even got on the court last year to implement, him into the thing. So people are always wondering, like, how did Brandon Ingram implement so seamlessly is on a new team? That's how they did it. So given that this team does not stop, we're at stage 10 right now. So if we assume that stage 10 is 1, 2, 3, 4 bars away. And I will argue that every single bar you go up is going to get a little bit harder, which is why the jump is higher. If you're stage 10 right now, I would say over the next 13 months, you're going to get to stage 11 or 12. And then hopefully by 2027, 2028, which will be next year, you'll finally hit the ceiling on what this team can be, which is kind of like right now where OKC is, or last year where OKC was, which is now you're ready to actually go out there and compete for championships. They've timed this perfectly. Scotty will be 26, entering his prime, finally ready to compete for championships. RJ, if he sticks around, he will be 27. Brandon Ingram will be around 31. If he sticks around, who knows? Colin Murray-Boyles will be around 22, 23. Jacoby Walter will be like 24, 25. Like you'll have everybody in the exact right spot. Jakob Poeltl will hopefully, be off the team at that point, or at least on a much lower contract, or at least a very, very dazzling expiring. But Jakob is a huge expiring, by the way. I will say that. In fact, one fact that a lot of people have not factored in about Jakob Poeltl's contract, at least not as much as I would like them to, is if you look at this, hold on, I'm actually going to pull up Yak's contract. I know we're trying not to talk about like contracts and trading people, but I'm not talking about trading Yak here. I'm talking about a different way to look at Yak. Give me one sec here. Pull this up. So if you look at Jakob Poeltl's contract, right, this year right here, only $5 million is guaranteed, which means in this year, so 2028, 2029, he's effectively an expiring contract. Because the next year would only be $5 million guaranteed. A team can just eat $5 million, no issue, right? Because the expected salary is going up so much that $5 million is almost nothing. So if you look at it from this perspective, at the trade deadline of 2028, 2029, where will you really be as a basketball team, right? You're right here, right now. 2025, 2026. He clocked into his player contract, player option for next year, which is $19.5 million. Shout out to the Raptors for extending him. He would have been a fucking free agent this summer had he opted out, but okay. So that year, 19.5, you're not ready to compete for championships right here. Like right here, you're probably still like in the growth phase. CMB second year, Scotty's 25 years old, RJ's 26 years old, Jacoby's still young, Grady is still whatever, right? By this point right here, 2027, 2028, you're probably entering the first year that you could realistically compete for championships. Once again, Scotty is 26, right? 2001 born, yeah, 26. Scotty's 26. So now here the clock starts. And the very next year, you have a dazzling $29.4 million, pretty much expiring contract at the trade deadline to make your big splashy move, add in a couple of picks, ideally from 2030, 2031, and that will be your finishing piece to your championship puzzle. That'll be your Marc Gasol, that'll be your Danny Green, that'll be your Serge Ibaka, whoever it is at that point. Jakob Poeltl's contract will be used. I wish to God that this contract was 1 year shorter so you could do all of this 1 year less. But man, a $29 million expiring contract with only $5 million guaranteed for the next year, that's really not that bad. And yeah. Andrew Raptor saying trying to contend in the Wemby era. I mean, you want to get to the finals. He's not in your conference. That's a good way to look at it. If AJ DeBonsa goes the other way as well, you could argue that there's a real path to Scotty Barnes being the best player in this conference in 2 years, easily. I mean, if you wanna do a breakdown of this playoffs, is Scotty Barnes the best player in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs? I know Shea has been better than him, but he's the only player that I can say definitively has been better than him. Is there another player where you can definitely say in the Eastern Conference that player has been better than Scotty Barnes? Brian confirmed for us the other day, Scotty's at 40 to 45%. So, again, you look at these contracts, you're like, where's Scotty right now? This summer will probably be the most motivated he's ever been. Whether the Raptors win tomorrow or not, he has seen the promised land right now. He has seen what this can be. He's seen himself succeed in the playoffs. He's seen his team fall apart around him health wise. There's nothing like there's so much belief right now. Like it's a beautiful thing that Emmanuel Quickly is out because I think Emmanuel Quickly's a theoretical value add, whereas in reality he might not have been a value add. So it's just kind of like one of those things where, at least from a coping perspective, for every single Raptors player, if you lose tomorrow, you can easily be like, yeah, if Ingram was healthy and if Quickly was healthy, we would have won this series. And now you build forward with that delusional belief in yourself. It's important. And honestly, this is an important thing too. Colin Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes is probably the best defensive duo in the league against someone like Victor Wembanyama. But also, in my opinion, Colin Murray-Boyles might be the best matchup that the Raptors have ever had for SGA. So, big physical defender who can switch his hips. Yes, if you can stop Donovan Mitchell, you can do a lot against SGA. Scotty's a super max player on a max contract. That too. Scotty did the Raptors a huge favor by buying into their shit last year. Scotty could have chased Supermax last year. He totally could have, and he probably should have, honestly. I'm not one of those people that says defend the organization. No, I'm definitely more player first. So, yeah, Scotty probably should have gone for all NBA last year. He didn't. And because of that, the Raptors have a lot more cap flexibility to be able to move it around. The only thing I'll say is the only thing that can really stop the Raptors at this point is Scotty is in the first year of a 5-year extension. Around 3 years from now or 2 years from now, expect there to be a lot of chatter around the NBA about whether or not Scotty Barnes will re-sign with the Raptors. There's my prediction for you. I'm giving you a 2029 prediction in 2026, just for the people who stuck around till the 1 hour and 30-minute mark of this live. I'm already seeing Knicks fans, Nuggets fans, Lakers fans, Clippers fans, Spurs fans. I've seen so many fan bases trying to Photoshop Scotty into their fucking jerseys right now. I saw a Detroit fan the other day say, like, oh my God, Scotty and Cade could take over the East. Okay. This too. So the good thing is Scotty is completely bought in. That is amazing. I think it's amazing that he bought into being a leader on this team, that he's bought into the culture, that he is invested in this city as much as he has, that he never ever misses an opportunity to represent the city of Toronto on a bigger scale, that he sings along with O Canada. There's so many cool things about Scotty. I think it's amazing that his circle is not anti-Canadian. Like I just want to say that like out loud, just so I have it on record. No, man, like his mom is from Florida and she comes here and she loves it. She loves it, man. She loves it. She's always posting pictures of like the snow and she's posting like videos on my timeline about like she's like, oh my God, it's like this is so cool. I've never seen snow before. There's always like an openness and an embracing to it. They love it. They actually love it. You have found the rare Floridian that likes Canada. Salute, Toronto. You did it. You found a Florida kid. You found a Florida kid that loves Toronto. The dude is scootering around in his fucking shorts in the winter. Trust me, this is not a Kawhi Leonard situation where he's sitting in the hotel room huddled as it's -5 outside, being like, nah, bro, it's too cold to go out. No, for whatever reason, Scotty Barnes is just built different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's not going to wear a jacket when it's like -15, but I'm telling you, like, this is not a guy who is privately like always bitching about the cold. I don't think you've ever really heard Scotty bitch about the cold at all. Has he ever fed into that narrative once? like, damn, the winters are damn cold. Like, does he ever go on an American podcast and be like, yeah, man, I gotta tell you, love Toronto, but the winters suck? I don't think he's ever done that. I have to say, like, I like Toronto as an American who moved here. I always liked it. I didn't hate the cold at all because I grew up in New York, so the cold never really bothered me. But I have like a special place in my heart for people who come here, who embrace the city, who have no reason to have to embrace the city. Like Vince was a player who embraced the shit out of the city, was here all summer, brought charity events this summer. Um, you know, participated in like Toronto culture, built things up. I really appreciate people like that, you know. And Scotty is like cut from that same cloth, right? DeMar was cut from the same cloth. Kyle was cut from the same cloth. Chris Bosh wasn't to me, you know, he just wasn't like that. He didn't care. He didn't want to plant roots here because he always had his kind of like mind is like, I'm going to be somewhere else. He didn't do that. Kawhi, you know, respect to Kawhi, great player, one of my favorite players, but man, he don't really do that. Like he don't really go out of his way to like plant roots here. I got a lot of love for players who plant their roots here. Players who embrace the city, who and it's not a defensive thing either. This is not like a, oh, how do you feel about Canada? Canada, you know, I secretly think Americans hate Canada. Do you also hate? No, it's not like that. It's just like it's a human thing. When you go into a place, you should want to make that place better. You should want to integrate yourself with that space. If you go to a company, you should want to make that company better. I think the Raptors targeted guys like Jamal Shed because they identified that sort of spirit in those players to want to make places better. Call them culture builders. That spirit of culture building is that image of Jamal Shed picking up the trash after a teammate and an assistant coach knock it over after a tough loss where where they got jobbed by the referees. That's a culture builder to me. That's a culture builder, right? You look at someone like Garrett Temple, that's a culture builder. You know, even Jakob Pertl, like that's a culture builder. He shows up every single day. He mentors the youth. He does all that stuff. That to me is a culture builder, someone who embraces the city, embraces the community engagement, embraces their obligations be off the court, embraces the power that they have as an athlete to make a difference in the city. That's really cool to me. So Scotty is that type of person. I feel like Colin Murray Boyles, you know, we haven't really seen his full personality show up yet, but we'll probably see a lot more of that too. Jacoby is that type of person. I've gotten to know a lot about Jacoby, you know, away from the court and stuff. And like, you know, he's that type of person. Jamal is definitely the type of person. So you're building, you've built a team around Hall of Fame people, you know, who've sacrificed a lot of their personal goals to invest in a team goal. And right now that team goal is paying off. I, for one, can't wait for game 7, but I can't wait for the summer. I can't wait for next year. This is going to be a really blessed time to be a Toronto Raptor fan. And, you know, salute to these young men, man. They are making it happen and they are making it a joy for me to cover this team. I was not having fun covering this team in 2022, 2023. Arduous, um, frustrating, depressing, annoying, made me angry. So many lives. I'm so angry. Angry at what I was watching, angry at what I was watching being squandered, angry at the development, angry at the process, angry at the contract hunting, the stat padding, all of it. It was so annoying to watch this because I know what builds championships and that's not it. So they say sometimes life gives you what you don't want, so you'll appreciate what you want so much more. And I think that's really what's happening here. I don't know if I would have appreciated Darko if we had just gone from Dwayne Casey to Darko. I think you needed the erosion of culture, the selfish stat padding, the contract hunting, the rumors, the dysfunction. I think you needed all of that to see, oh, I get it. That's what a lack of culture feels like. Because I think we were all a little bit spoiled with Kyle and DeMar and the culture that was built in this team. I think you need to go back to like 2009 Toronto Raptors, 2005 Toronto Raptors, 2010 Toronto Raptors, 1997 Toronto Raptors to see teams that really suck culturally, teams that just really don't bring it on a night to night basis, don't care about the right things, kind of just a bunch of individuals playing for themselves, disengaged, no pride. What is grit? What is grit? This team is defined by grit, right? Everyone keeps saying they're so gritty. They're so gritty. What is grit? Grit is passion infused with will and toughness and sacrifice. That's what grit is. This team is gritty as fuck. Thoughts on Jacoby's improvement? Ain't seen nothing yet, man. You ain't seen nothing yet. What is love? Well, that's a very philosophical question. I don't know what love is. Not in an eloquent way. I don't know how to phrase it. What do you think love is? It's an interesting question. As long as Penn reps the Raptors, Scotty reps the Raptors. Scotty's kid is Canadian. Yep. Yes, she is. AG saying, God bless Mama Barnes. Oh, man, she is having the time of her life. She's at every single game right now. She is so happy. I'm happy for her. I remember you said Jacoby has a little bit of SGA's game. Yeah. I think that's going to be like next year. I'll tell you right now, you're going to see a lot of on-ball growth from Jacoby, like guaranteed. He has to be combo guard adjacent to be super successful in the NBA. How are you feeling ahead of tonight's game? So everybody on, I think it was like they polled the panelists. So it was Steve Smith or Steve Nash. I don't know. I just saw Steve, Udonis Haslem, Dirk Nowitzki, everybody. So pretty much everybody picked the Cavaliers in Game 7, with the exception of Udonis Haslem. And I thought it was very interesting because Udonis Haslem has 3 championships and Steve Smith has 0 and Dirk has 1 and the entire rest of the panel had 0. So it was like kind of interesting that the guy who won 3 championships, picked the Raptors. Maybe that's cope because all the other players were also better than he was. So maybe that's something. I don't know. Sexy Red 571 said Barnes' game is a hybrid of Magic, Scottie, Pippen. Well, now you are speaking the language of Leonard Hamilton, who said this exact thing 6 years ago. Bosch cared, but he wanted to win. I disagree. I disagree in general with your notion that he wanted to win. He wanted to be seen as a winner, but people who really want to win invest in their team. They build their teammates up. They feel a personal obligation to their teammates. They don't sit out like 10 games that he sat out at the end of the year when the Raptors completely fell from playoff contention because they want to preserve their one day we're gonna make a documentary about Chris Bosh and how much he wasn't what people think he was. I don't respect Chris Bosh at all. Like straight up, one of my most despised former Raptors. He is definitely up there. Hold on. I'm just gonna pull something up here. Oh, this is funny. Y'all want to see something funny? This is from Raptors Moments. This is.
I didn't like the Barnes max extension.
I've never been a Barnes guy. I honestly, fuck Scotty Barnes.
I was on the record. I didn't like the Barnes max extension. That contract's awful.
Scotty Barnes is somebody I've just become down on.
I don't like their top 5 guys. I don't like any of their contracts for the top 5.
They're doing a lot of A-level spending on like B- guys. Scotty Barnes, it's $38.5 million for him.
There's a Scotty Barnes. Is there something else there? I don't personally think there is.
Scotty Barnes.
My favorite is Waz.
Does that player coexist with Brandon Ingram?
That's crazy.
We'll find out.
That's the thing. And
Can't.
I don't really like that they lumped Rob Mahoney into this because I honestly think Rob Mahoney is higher on Scotty than a lot of the others. But the guy who is the lowest on Scotty, who will never stop talking shit about Scotty, is ironically this guy.
Play with Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram.
Barnes and Ingram both really want to be on the ball. Barnes, is he a top 15 player in the league this year?
No, I'm going
yeah.
no.
He's just never going to
This guy.
be like a credible carrier of your offense, like I think that ship has sailed. Like Scotty Barnes, I think that's what he wanted himself to be. I think that's why they ran Pascal Siakam out of town.
Oh, the victory laps are beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. You know what else the victory laps are beautiful on? This. I said a year ago, Scotty Barnes is better than Chris Bosh. And then I doubled down a year ago by saying, bookmark this video and come back to me in a year and let me know. Always said it with my chest. Always. Scotty is better than Chris Bosh. And he has just put together a playoff run in a playoff series that is better than anything Chris Bosh has ever done. And since we live and die in the moment, we can now officially say that he is better than Hall of Famer Chris Bosh. Also, give a shout out to Flight Reacts.
Scotty 561 Barnes!
Love it. You gotta respect it at this point. It's just hype. He's just very hype. Also, could this be a big swing for the Raptors at some point? Just kind of browsing through my little Twitter posts here. He's talking about RJ Barrett's hitting the game winner. RJ as a player is very special, very talented. Every time I see RJ, he's better. Sky's the limit because of that. But the overall quote that really got people excited is, it's definitely every Canadian's dream to play at home. Okay, cool. OKC East, man. If the Raptors ever manage to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander before he's 32, somehow via trade demand, whatever, I'm just throwing it out there. Y'all, we're winning championships. With Scotty Barnes and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, let's speak that shit into existence, because that would be amazing. Did you hear what Rowan said about RJ getting no respect? No idea. No, I didn't. What did he say? Andrew Raptors said, how many playoff games did Bosh win in Toronto? 3, my friend. 3 playoff games. And how many playoff games has Scotty Barnes won? 1, 2, 3, 4. We've won 4. Congratulations. Shai's dad was at the game. I do remember that. Yes. I saw the picture of that. Can you imagine like Shai's dad going up to him in the offseason and being like, yo, bro, son, I'm calling you back home. We got a championship contender here. You want to come back home? Come back home. Made me sick to see Bosh during the 2019 run in the 6th. Stay on that side, dude. Absolutely. Hey, man, I thought the air smelled different in Florida. I've been to Florida. The air does not... Shut up, man. No. Not letting you get away with that bullshit, bro. Like, my biggest pet peeve, personally, is people who act different in different situations. So for the Toronto media, it's all like, oh, yeah, Toronto's a beautiful city. It's like mini New York, blah, 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 blah. And then when it comes to the American media, oh, yeah, let's tell them what they want to hear. And they want to hear that Canada smells different, or America smells different. The air smells different. The air smells cleaner up here. Shut up, man. Ugh, frustrating. I was at Canada Day with Shai's dad last year, and he loves the Raptors. Of course he does. Mark said the word love actually means to please. I disagree, but I mean, sure, we're allowed to have different opinions about that. If I had to define love, like, because now, like, I think multiple people have kind of probed at this question, I think it means to be of service. Honestly, I think it means to be of service. I think it means, yeah. I think it means to be of service to something that's bigger than yourself. For sure. That's what I think. I I do appreciate that Caitlin Cooper is breaking down so much Raptors tape. It's really cool. She's really one of the smarter people covering basketball in general. She says, defending above the checks and shrinking the floor vertically has continued to flummox this offense. The Raptors can pounce strong side without peeling because the closeouts are shorter than if they were sinking in. Just keep ambushing Mitchell and Harden. So take a look at what she's talking about here. And playback speed 0.75. And let's go. So watching the Raptors defense here. Cool. RJ Barrett gets away with that. I mean, people are so lazy when they say, James Harden is choking. James Harden is struggling. Look at this Raptors defense. Look at the commitment level. At this exact moment, I freeze. Every single player is in the perfect spot. Where does he go? There's a pass to Sam Merrill, and RJ he kicks it. You could argue right there that Merrill broke free of the space. So you see Merrill here. He's just slowly shuffling himself. And right now, really, we're talking about it's like a game of inches. Inches right now, right? Right now, Merrill is within reach. The minute he shuffles, I would say 2 more feet to the left, which is exactly what he does. You just see it. He's doing it. And as he catches it, he's going to catch it when he already relocates probably 2 more feet to the corner. At that point, he will be out of reach and he'll get an open shot. That's what the Raptors are having to deal with a processor like James Harden and a downhill attacker like Donovan Mitchell. There's a reason why this Cavaliers team is favored to come out of the East right now. Even right now, they're favored to come out of the East. And I think if you're the Toronto Raptors, you have to be really happy right now. Like really happy. Because the one team that I definitively thought that you probably couldn't beat, which is the Boston Celtics, a healthy Celtics with Tatum, Brown, a team that has whooped you 3 times this year or 4 times, they're out. And the team in their place is definitely a team you can beat in the Sixers. I believe the Raptors can beat the Sixers. So right now, the Raptors have 1 game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which they have to win tomorrow. Brandon Ingram has been upgraded to questionable. I don't know what that means. It might be a big bluff. It might mean Brandon Ingram is out of the walking boot and he wants to give it a go. It might mean that Ingram is going to come out there as a decoy. It might mean Ingram is actually feeling better. I have no idea. That being said, if Brandon Ingram plays tomorrow, the Raptors win. Emmanuel Quickley was limping after RJ's shot, so it looks like Emmanuel Quickley might actually just be done. There's no way he was limping the way he was, and he's just going to come back for game 1. Game 1 is on Tuesday, by the way. So whoever wins tomorrow has to face whoever wins tomorrow on Tuesday. It's kind of funny that both teams that are going to be playing on Tuesday have no idea who they're facing. The Raptors don't know if they're going to be facing nobody because they'll be in Cancun. They don't know if they'll be facing, the Pistons or the Magic. I'm assuming, kind of like bracing myself here, that the Cavaliers and the Pistons make it through, and then that way Cade is going up against Donovan Mitchell in the second round. But there's a chance that Orlando summons some courage. I have no idea if Franz is playing right now. If Franz plays, the Magic are the better team. So, okay, let's assume the Raptors and the Pistons get through. You get through the Pistons and you get through the Sixers or the Knicks. It's not a cakewalk by any means, and definitely the party stops in the finals because I don't think the Raptors can beat the Spurs or the OKC Thunder yet. But man, you're really right there. And the Hawks are gone, right? The Hawks are done, right? The Celtics are done. Andrew's saying, I want Orlando if we make it through. It's interesting. A lot of people said they want the Pistons. Curious why you want Orlando. Why do you want Orlando? I understand why you want Orlando. I also want Orlando, but I'm curious why you want Orlando. It is 3 a.m. My God. I had a weird schedule today. I ended up sleeping very, very very late last morning. So I ended up sleeping in through most of the day. I ended up having like a very lazy Saturday. And right now I have a lot of work to do after this live. I do want to say, in regards to all the online chatter and stuff, like I'm just slowly learning that, man, it is hard to explain to people who do not want to be explained to things that cannot be explained to them. And I applaud anybody who tries to do it. But if somebody's entire mindset about a subject is not built on logic, trying to logic with them is not going to help you. I've listened to so many people. Like for years, I've been listening on PC. He makes so much sense, but when it comes to Scotty Barnes, he's always wrong. Like he just goes overboard and he ruins his entire credibility. For years, as a basketball analyst, I've heard that I straight cook on most subjects, but when it comes to Scotty Barnes, I have no objectivity. I'm always wrong about Scotty. Today, I saw somebody write, apart from Scotty, has he ever been right about anything? So it's like, what are we doing here? Like, my impulse, my first impulse was to be like, okay, well, I was right about Cooper Flagg, AJ DeBonsa, Carter Bryant, like so many people, right? Which chatter are you referring to specifically or just in general? Oh, just in general. That guy's a fucking Lakers fan. KB knows ball. Yeah, like, but people will always do that, right? Like, Slitherman said you have hot streaks and cold streaks. Yeah, sure. But I mean, like, if you really want to go back and measure like every single thing that I've said about the Raptors, like go back on every single one. Where am I really wrong? Joe Wieskamp? Like, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, you said Joe Wieskamp was gonna stick around and be like a shooter for the Raptors, and he didn't turn into that. You said Otto Porter was gonna be the best free agent signing, and he barely played for us. Okay. You co-signed the Ochai Abaji trade and said there was potential there to be zapped. You were happy about Jonathan Mobo's second round signing. Yes, okay. Those are my misses. Those are my misses. Jeff Doughton, free Jeff Doughton. Jeff Doughton is going to be okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for the most part. Davion Mitchell will be out of the league next year if he doesn't fix his jump shot. Well, I mean, in fairness, I cooked on that one because he did fix his jump shot. Now he shoots Kobe Buffkin, Jordan Hawkins. I wasn't that high on Kobe Buffkin, but I guess I was a lot higher on Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins was definitely a miss. So we talk about the misses, right? We talk about the misses for sure. But what about the hits? I have like 4 hits for every miss. 4 hits for every miss. Easily. Andrew Raptor said, Cade and Asar are a lot scarier than Paolo and Franz. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, dude. Yes, I did have Rayon Repair 13th overall. You know they say sometimes you knock on the right door, wrong neighborhood. They ended up drafting Toumani Camara, so the Blazers got Repair and Camara. So everything that I said about Repair ended up being true about Camara. I think you're 65% true shooting. Probably. I think more, man. Like if you want to Elijah Martin to be seen. Pure Romanista said, when you speak for hours daily for years, you're of course going to get something wrong every so often, as would anyone. I don't know why someone would be holding wrong about a player against you. Yeah. But honestly, like, I think some of the most respected basketball analysts are about shooting about 57 to 60%. So that's kind of my stance for myself. That's where I'm at right now, where the vast majority of things that I'm going to say with conviction, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having an all-time season. 2023, 2024, I said he's approaching all-time guard seasons. AJ DeBonsa is going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. I said this when Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer was a conversation. I said he would go number 1 over Cooper Flagg. I said Cooper Flagg was more offensively leaning and more oriented than people realized, and that he was going to be a much better scorer than people realized. And people thought I was crazy, and they just kept comparing him to Andre Kirilenko. And I said that comparison was stupid, that he was closer to Tatum and Kawhi Leonard. I am right about that. Scotty Barnes, clearly 100% the most right person on earth about Scotty Barnes that covers the Raptors or covers sports, period. Peyton Watson, huge. Dyson Daniels, huge. Onyeka Okongwu, huge. These are wins. These are all draft scouting wins. Carter Bryant's going to be a lottery pick. He was mocked 27th when I said that. So again, like, it's just, do you still like Bryant over CMB? Yes. Sorry. Still, yes. I have not been moved. I would say right now, if I had to redo my big board, I would probably have, I had CMB 8th. I would now move him to like 6th. Maybe 6th, 5th. But Carter's still, Kaysen Wallace, huge. Is Misi a 2BD? No. I had Misi 13th or 14th on my board. I think that's exactly where he would go in a redraft right now. Kalel Ware is a miss because he's been better than I thought he would be. Who else is a miss? I mean, man, you could, like, everything I've said for years is the Jakob Poeltl trade being a disaster. Maxime Renault, absolutely huge hit. Brendan Carlson, that's a miss for me. I said waiving him was of no consequence, and I was wrong. Walker Kessler was a miss for me. I said he was horrible. Christian Koloko, I said he would be amazing. He was not amazing. He never grew offensively. That was a miss for me. I think, unfortunately, like the Ulrich and Christian Koloko situations being derailed by blood clots, to me, I feel like yes, biggest miss. One of my biggest misses. Keontae George. You just gaslit me into thinking his name was Keyshawn George. No, Keontae George. Jabari Smith, first overall. Yes. I had Jabari first in the 2022 draft. I had Paolo third. I had Chet second. Yes, I remember that very clearly. I was wrong. 100%. He should have probably been fourth. Who else? I think I was pretty correct about Keegan Murray. I was lower than consensus on Jaden Ivey. I remember telling Leo afterwards that while I understood the Jaden Ivey thing, but again, so much of the stuff is context dependent, right? Like, so much of the stuff is context dependent. If Jaden Ivey goes into a different situation, does he become a different player? For sure. If Maxime Renault goes into a different situation, maybe you never hear about Maxime Renault because he never gets the minutes to actually play. I've always said Paolo is overrated. I've always said Franz was underrated. I've always talk about the turnaround on fucking Jalen Suggs after his rookie season. People were swearing off that guy. I was saying trade for him. So again, like, yes, when you talk about basketball as often as I do, like, you're going to be wrong about a lot of things. I think what bothers me about a lot of people is they can be wrong about things, but they'll never acknowledge that they're wrong about them. They don't remember them. I wear my wrongs, like, I wear them on my sleeve, dude. How are you on Josh Primo? Hated him. Jonte Porter, loved him. Loved Jonte Porter. I thought Jonte Porter was going to stick around forever, but I blame gambling companies for that, not myself. I swore it was Keyshawn on the Wizards. Yeah, we're not talking. I wasn't low on Keyshawn George or high on him. I just missed completely because I don't remember even talking about him. I definitely remember talking about Keontae George, very actively against Keontae George, hated Keontae George as a prospect, thought he was going to fail miserably, and he didn't. I've also, I think I had Ace Bailey like 9th. He's been way better than 9th to me. If I had to redo my 2020, hold on, can I quickly redo my 2026 draft class right now? Sorry, 2025 draft class. Let me just redo it right now. So I'm just going to order it in order of how I would pick these players. So give me one sec here. I'm going to pull it up. I'm just going to select players one at a time, and we're just going to see where they land. Okay, with the first pick, Cooper Flag. With the second pick, Dylan Harper. Honestly, I want to be clear about something. I'm actually having a real debate between those two. I could seriously see a world in which I would pick Dylan Harper over Cooper Flag. So, whoops, I highlighted Con Knipple. Sorry. Cooper Flag, number 1. Dylan Harper, number 2. Let's go Con Knipple, number 3. Now, number 4 is where I have to debate 3 names for number 4. And that is Colin Murray Boyles, VJ Edgecombe, and Carter Bryant. These are the 3 names that I am thinking about in that situation. Obviously, Carter is down here. VJ and Colin are up here. So it's a little bit hard to say, you know, like one of those players got a lot more minutes than the other. So it's really hard to say. I am going to go with Carter Bryant. 4th, Colin 5th, VJ 6th. That might be controversial. I know everyone's saying VJ Edgecombe, VJ Edgecombe. I actually really like VJ Edgecombe. I've been talking about VJ for a year prior to the draft because I saw him with Bahamas and I loved him. At 7, okay. At 7, it gets really tricky because there's some players like, and I'm not sure how much I really believe in the upside versus downside argument on them. I'm not going Ace Bailey, but I am thinking about Jeremiah Fears. Vorp does not like Jeremiah Fears, but I still like Jeremiah Fears. So there's 7. At 8, I'm tempted to go Derek Queen, but I don't think I go Derek Queen. Okay, at 8, I guess I got to go Ace Bailey. Come on. Ace, come on, Ace, come on, Ace. I'm not really sure. Okay. At this point, maybe it's not so helpful to look at Vorp. So let's just look at this. Okay. Trey Johnson, Yegor Dioman. Okay. So we are at pick 8. I'll go Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey at 8. Trey Johnson at 9. Kaman Malawach at 10, which is exactly where he went. Cedric Howard at 11. Yegor Dioman at 12. Derek Queen at 13. I'm willing to go really weirdly high on Hugo Gonzalez as the 14th pick in this draft. I just really like him. Has anyone else stuck out like in a major way? Yeah, Will Riley. There's 15th. 16. Kasparis. Joan. Okay, 15, 16. 17, Rasheer Fleming. 18, Maxime Renault. 19th, Adu Thiero. 20th, Thomas Sorber, even though he hasn't played. 21st, Yannick Niederhauser. 22nd, Jace Richardson. 23rd, now I gotta go Noah Senge. 24th, Nolan Traore. 25th, I am having a lot of trouble. 25th. Where do I go? Ryan Kalkbrenner. 26th. Asa Newell. 27th. Jameer Watkins. '28th. Ooh, Nee Clifford-ish. Okay. I hadn't watched enough Liam McNeely. But let's just go with him. 29th, exactly where he was picked. Nah, fuck it. Noah Penda, 29th. Javon Small, 30th. He was competent. 31st, Liam McNeely. Yeah. After this, maybe 32nd, Sion James. I can still see the limited upside with Sion James, but honestly, I could see the argument for him anywhere from 25 onward. So, yeah. I mean, some things have moved, but a lot of things remain the same. And I mean, honestly, like the draft was pretty much where it was, honestly. We wasted our pick on Martin. Honestly, that was my thought at the time. I don't really think that's the case. I saw enough from him in the G League this year to at least be hopeful that he could become a serviceable rotation player at some point in his career. But yeah, like I still remain insanely high on the players I was very high on, and I'm still pretty low on the players that I was really low on. Nobody has really completely shattered my expectations this year. I think the one player that I'm just way higher on right now than I was. I mean, honestly, Colin Murray Boyles and Colin Knippel, like those two, I watched so much of them this year. They really, and Julio Gonzalez. So like those are the three. Like those three. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah. He's been really good. Where the fuck is he? Was he undrafted? Or am I blind? Oh, there he is. Yeah, he would go top. He would go top of the second round as well. He was really reasonable this year. Rocco Zakarski just didn't play a lot of minutes. Will Richard was interesting as well. It's really hard to tell who these players are, man. Like it's so hard to tell who these players are in these losing ass contexts that some of them find themselves in. They're not really playing competitive basketball. They're not really they're not really playing like for anything. So it's really difficult. They're not playing with good players. A lot of them are just on a stacked team of bad players. That's to me, it's very difficult. Sion has been great this season. I agree. He's been awesome. But he's 23, 24. When you compare a player who's 23, 24, 25 to a player who's 20, like that's very difficult to me. Charlotte found 3 gems. I agree. They found 3 gems and they paired them with a bunch of other gems. And honestly, I have to say, if we look back at, I think a lot of people think that Tijan Salon was a really, really big miss. I'm not really sure. If he's a complete miss. If we go to the 2023 draft, how would I redraft this? Well, clearly number 1 would be Victor Wembanyama. Who would go number 2 in this draft? It's not Scoot Henderson. It's probably Brandon Miller. Still Brandon Miller. Oh man, there's such a fall off after 2. Okay, let's just go Amen Thompson. Let's go 3rd. Brandon Miller, 4th. Asar Thompson, 5th. Cason Wallace, 6th. Derek Lively. Man. This draft is tough. 7th, Anthony Black. 8th, Keontae George. Man. Ryan Rupert. What could have been? 9th, Tumani Kamara, maybe? Oof. Some of these picks. 10th, Jaime Jaquez, probably. Who's going 11th here? Man, I'm having a really hard time putting Brandon Pajemski in lottery talks, but he might be. Gigi Jackson, maybe? No, I'm just hating at this point. Well, I'll tell you what. Grady might still be a first-round pick in this draft. Jarris hasn't been amazing. I was really high on Jarris Walker. You can consider that another miss for me. Jalen Clark, definitely a valid consideration for that, for sure. Trace went 6th, dude. I forgot. He didn't go 6th. He's 6th in value of a replacement. He's not 6th in the draft. Trace Jackson Davis went 57th in the NBA draft. Despite going 57th in the draft, by the way, he is 6th in value of a replacement. That shows how impactful he is, in my opinion. Noah Clowney's another one for sure. These are all players who would probably go over Grady Dick at this point. However, I would tell you, if I was making the pick, Grady is still a top 20 pick in this draft. So based on what I've seen from him and based on what I've seen from the other players, I still think he's top 20. Anyways, been here for over 2 hours. Just want to say, shout outs to the Toronto Raptors and their development. It's totally on display for the whole world to see. And I know that the world is not really ready right now to have the conversation about Darko being a top 10 coach in the NBA. But if you consider all the elements of what makes somebody a good coach, trusting your players, making adjustments, developing your players, building up human beings, getting buy-in, getting culture, organization, all that stuff, I have a very hard time finding 10 coaches in the league that I'd rather have running this than Darko. So shout outs, man. He is definitely one of the least paid coaches in the NBA. He is definitely one of the least known. He is definitely one of the most clowned coaches in the NBA. A lot of people have taken digs at him, his attitude, his accent, his vernacular, all that stuff. But man, people are so wrong about him. I'm very happy for him too. He's not made this about himself. Can Darko contend for coach of the year this year? I think he is the coach of the year this year. Him or JB Bickerstaff or Joe Mazzulla, to me, would be the 3 guys that should be up for that award. Jordan Ott, maybe, is a 4th. And Mitch Johnson is a 5th. Like, to me, those are the 5 people who should be contending for coach. And maybe one of the things that the NBA needs is an all-coaching first team. Just honor the 5 best coaches in the league. And that's what we should do. Not Donald Fagan said, a rental is when you overpay for a star on an expiring contract. Trace is just a guy who exists. Yes, and he also has a team option next year. So he is also a rotation guy that can be technically has I think a $1.5 million team option that can be picked up. So he's a very, very cheap rotation guy. I wonder if there's other people that believe in Trace Jackson Davis at this point. I wonder if there's some untapped development in Trace Jackson Davis. I really wish that this guy could shoot. So yeah. Schoolwork Love is back. BI injury update. He is questionable for tomorrow. It should go to Darko because it's essentially the most improved team. I think a lot of people would look at the Detroit Pistons as the most improved team. But that being said, in the playoffs, if you factor in playoff context as well, definitely Darko would win it. Darko would win coach of the first round, I'll tell you that. And Scotty might win player of the first round. So shout outs to both of them. Ibrahim said Pistons versus Raptors Eastern Conference semifinals. I'll have to refresh all those Cade versus Scotty takes. Also, I would look forward to it because I know that they would guard each other a lot. But honestly, in that moment, I have a feeling that a lot of victory laps are going to be run on my head as well, as Cade averages 30 and Scotty gets guarded by Asar Thompson and averages 19. I don't know. They have different roles. I'm rooting for the Pistons though. I cannot let my Raptors fandom delude my Pistons fandom. Obviously, I'm 100 times more Raptor fan than Piston fan, but I am a Pistons fan as well. Like I do root for the Pistons. When I'm not watching the Raptors, I root for the Pistons, the Hornets, the Spurs, the OKC Thunder, and the Denver Nuggets. These are my favorite teams in the NBA. I do not root for any team having Paolo Banchero. Like I cannot. Scotty only giving you 20 while Cade scoring 40. Yeah, exactly. And the entire, well, Cade is not going to be scoring 40 if Scotty's guarding him. He's going to be scoring a very inefficient 25. But you know how these PRA merchants think, right? Chill and Spill COC said would anticipate the Pistons to be a greater challenge than the Cavs, considering they were the best defense in the NBA. Or has the calculus changed with Scotty's offensive surgeons? One, they weren't the best defense in the NBA. The OKC Thunder were the best defense in the NBA. So to specify that, they were the best team in the Eastern Conference, though. And the reason I don't like the Pistons as a matchup is because I'm not really sure that the Raptors have the physicality to match up with them, especially with Jakob Poeltl and Brandon Ingram and potentially, Emmanuel Quickley. They're more athletic than you. They're bigger than you. They're stronger than you on your positional size. Everything you're doing to the Cavaliers, they would do to you. So, yeah, Scotty being this level of downhill attacker is going to change some stuff, but Asar is also the best matchup in the NBA for Scotty Barnes. So you would be going up in either case. If Franz is healthy or Asar is healthy, I could argue those are two of the top 5 Scotty matchups in the NBA. And the Cavaliers do not have one of the top 10 Scotty matchups in the NBA. Like, to me, if I'm looking at players who can bother Scotty Barnes, I'm looking at OG Anunoby, Asar Thompson, Amen Thompson, Franz Wagner, Tamani Kamara. It's a list. There's a list. There's a specific bunch of traits you got to have as a basketball player to deal with the size of a Scotty Barnes. It's just not every team has that type of player, and the Cavaliers definitely don't have that player. Dean Wade is the closest thing they have to it, and when they've stuck Dean Wade on Scotty, the scoring has been less. It's been less potent than it's been when it's on Mobley or on Strus. So the the Pistons have 2 defenders like that you can throw on Scotty. Ron Holland, who's less effective, but still effective. Cade, who's less effective, but still has strength and long arms and can do some stuff. And most specifically, Asar Thompson. The good thing is, if you have to keep Asar Thompson on Scotty Barnes, then obviously somebody else is going to have to guard, Brandon Ingram if he's healthy. But if Ingram's not healthy, if Ingram's just going to be this version of himself for the rest of the playoffs, you have no chance against the Pistons, in my opinion. But again, I also thought you had no chance against the Cavaliers. And nothing in the world is going to make me happier than being wrong. I'll be so happy to be wrong, dude. I will be so, so happy to be wrong. I don't know if you can feel that. Nothing would make me happier than being wrong. If anything, I deeply, deeply, deeply believe in the Raptors. And I made so many videos about how the Raptors are not a joke. The Raptors are going to be more dangerous in the playoffs than people realize. And people laughed at me after they were down 0-2. I believe in this team for sure. But when I say that, okay, the Cavaliers are going to beat us, it's not necessarily because I want the Cavaliers to beat us. It's because I need to prepare myself emotionally for if they do. Maybe that's a loser mentality. Maybe, a real winner would come up here and be like, we're going to whoop the Cavs. But I also, manage my own expectations that way. Anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace. And plus, you can't have Holland and Asar on the floor simultaneously. You can. You shouldn't, but you can. All right. Peace, man.